What's going on YouTube? This is Kilo and I am back at it again, and this time I have my very first video on PLAYERUNKNOW'S Battlegrounds. Now this game is pretty new, it's still in early access, and I've been straight up addicted, y'all. I love this game. I think it's super fun, it's different than anything we've seen for a while, and it's more tactical and a little bit slow paced, and I really like that. But I just wanted to put together a beginner's guide because when I first started playing this game about a week and a half ago, I looked for some beginner's guides and I didn't really find anything that had all the tips and tricks that you might need to know when you're first getting into the game. So if you've already put 25 plus hours into this game, you're not really going to need to watch this video. If you might find a few things here and there, but you probably know all of it. This is for the new players that want all of their info in one spot as they're getting ready to start playing this game. Okay, so let's talk about gun mechanics first. So the first thing you need to know is to aim down sights, you click the right mouse button. This toggles aiming down the sights, so you don't need to hold it down, you just click it, and to exit you then click it again. If you hold it down, it just hones in over your shoulder and gives you a little bit more accuracy. You can also push V as in Victor to go into first person. Again here, if you click right mouse button, toggles ADS. If you hold right mouse button, it just kind of brings it up a little bit, gives you some more accuracy, but you can also just shoot from the hip without clicking anything. And then another thing to know is you push B as in Bravo to toggle between single fire and burst or automatic fire. So always be aware of what mode of fire you're on, because if you're trying to shoot someone that's really far away on fully auto or burst, it's really hard in this game. And like on the flip side, if you're trying to get into close quarters engagement and you're on single shot, you're probably going to lose if the other person's on fully auto or burst. So just pay a lot of attention to that. And one other tip is if you're aiming down the shoulder, you can switch which shoulder you're looking over with Q and E. So if you're going around a corner and want to be around the other shoulder, just hit one of those. And that's the basics of gun mechanics. I'd recommend getting in your first couple of games before you really focus on surviving. Maybe parachute into one of the more popular areas like the military base or somewhere that has some buildings directly under the path of the plane, and try to get a gun as quick as you can and just kind of practice getting in combat, so that way when you are in some high stakes combat later on in your later rounds, you'll be a little bit more practiced and well prepared, so you don't get frustrated that you just spent 25 minutes looting up, getting it to the end just to kind of have the gun mechanics throw you off. So now let's move on to the next thing. I forgot one little tip here, and that's when you are ADS, you can, if you're not moving, you can push shift and that will zoom your gun in a little bit, and you have your lungs down there, and that's how long you can hold your breath. But just be aware that if you're moving, you can't, pushing shift won't do anything, but you can push shift, zoom in, and then start moving. A little bit weird, but that's the way it works. Okay, so when you first load into a round of Battlegrounds, you come into this common area, and this is just waiting for everyone to get together. There's some guns and weapons over on these tables. People usually pick them up pretty fast, but it's just kind of for you to mess around. You can't hurt anyone or kill anyone. Any of the loot that you get doesn't carry over into the match. It's just a time to screw around, and some people are pretty funny, some people are really annoying, but it's just kind of a little fun thing. So once you actually get into the game, you'll spawn in the airplane, and the first thing you want to do is locate that island that's at the top of my screen. I circled it there on the map. That lets you orient yourself, and then you know what path you're coming in. You can also see your icon of the plane flying across. Remember the path of the plane. That is critical. So in this scenario, I'm coming from northwest to southeast. I'll want to remember that for the rest of the round, because that helps me orient myself and know where the most people are going to be. I know of 3 cars that have 100% spawns. I'll highlight them on the map here. I just placed a marker on one of them, and so once you want to jump out of the plane, you push F, you push M to get rid of the map. That's how I brought it up earlier, and I'm going straight down in this scenario. Sometimes you'll want to look straight up into the sky so you can cover the greatest horizontal distance, but my goal here is just to get to the ground as quickly as possible. And notice I get my speed here in the bottom left up to about 230 kilometers an hour. This helps me get to the ground as quickly as possible, especially right there where the chute opens, you kind of lose some extra altitude if you're going really fast, and that it can be critical in some scenarios where you're trying to beat someone else to the ground. So I'm just trying to get to the ground here, get in a car, and then that basically opens the entire map to me. Now, once I'm in that car, I'm going to flash a map here and it's Shatter. A player called Shatter made this map, and this is a great map to know where the best loot is. It's not perfect, and I think he's updating it, so I'll put a link to the to where the most current version is. But basically, once I have my car, I'm looking at this map, and I want to either get to the very southwest of the map or the very northeast, because those are going to be the furthest places from the flight path of the plane. So I'll use that Shatter's map to see where some good loot is, and I'll just hightail it, get the heck out of there. And that's what I have found is the most effective, safe way to loot. Some people like to go to the more populated areas, getting more engagements, and it's high risk, high reward. In those scenarios, you will get some really good loot, but there's a very high chance of you dying. I like to go on the safer side of things. I also really like to have a vehicle, and while we're on that topic, we'll kind of talk about vehicles. So vehicles are great for covering lots of ground. They're not great for giving away your position. They're loud, they're highly visible, and so there's pros and cons. I like to use vehicles a lot in the early game because the map is so big, but in the later game I start to ditch it maybe after 3 or so circles have restricted on the map and gotten smaller. Let's explain the circles. So on your map, you will see 2 boundaries. The first is the blue boundary, and if you're within that boundary, you're safe. You're not going to take damage from being out of bounds. There's also a white circle, and that's when the timer in the bottom right of your HUD gets to 0, the blue boundary starts closing in on the white boundary, and if you don't get inside the white boundary fast enough, you're going to start taking damage. And then once the blue circle has made it all the way to become the white boundary, then there's going to be a new white circle that's smaller that you're going to have to move to a few minutes later. And then there's one other thing, there's the red circle, and if you see that, that means a bombing run is coming from an airplane. And if you're in the red area, you need to either get in a building or get out of the area quick, because if you don't, there's a chance you could be hit by a bomb, game over. You don't want that to happen. Up next is the looting system and how to pick up items. So when you walk into a room and there's a lot of things on the ground, you can either push the F key to pick up things individually, or what I like to do, what I think is the fastest method, is to push tab, and that's going to bring up your inventory. And on the left side, you're going to see items that are on the ground, and on the right column, you're going to see stuff that you currently have in your inventory. And if you see things that you want to pick up, all you have to do is right click things on the left side, and that'll put it into your inventory. And so I just go from room to room, and when I see a lot of things on the ground, push tab, right click on what I want to pick up. Simple as that. And then when you want to equip things to your weapon, all you have to do is hover over it in your inventory, and if you right click it, it's going to auto equip it to a gun. Or if you want to drag and drop specifically to a slot, like if you have 2 assault rifles and you want to put a specific attachment on one of those, you can left click, drag over, and put it onto your gun. Some of the most important loot that you can find in this game are the medical items, so things like first aid kits, med kits, painkillers, and energy drinks. Now, first aid kits, med kits, those probably are intuitive. They heal your health. Med kits are the only thing that restore your health all the way to 100%. First aid kits and bandages will only replenish you to 75%, and then you either have to use a painkiller or an energy drink to get that last 25%. Painkillers and energy drinks do the same thing, but painkillers just last longer, so they're replenishing your health for longer than an energy drink does. If you consume 2 of these back to back, it gives you a small speed boost, which can be helpful if you're running away from a closing boundary and need a little bit of extra speed. It's not a huge speed boost, it's pretty small, but that can be helpful. I think the scopes are probably some of the most powerful items in this game. 4x scopes are my favorite. 8x are good, but it's a little too zoomed in. The 4x is pretty dynamic, good for medium to long range, and can even be useful in a little bit closer range. And then suppressors are very good. Those are pretty rare to come by. Suppressors for your assault rifle or your sniper rifle, that'll hide the direction you're shooting from, because sound is key in this game. Listening to footsteps and shots is almost always what gives people's position away. So if you can get some of that loot, you're going to be set up nice for endgame. And then lastly, things like the helmet, your backpack, and your armor. More so the armor and your helmet. If you can get level 3 helmets and armor, you're going to be able to take more shots before you die. And especially on a level 3 helmet, it gives you 360 degrees of protection. So that kind of eliminates the one-shot headshot kill. A level 2 and level 1 helmet, if you get shot in the face, it's still going to kill you. So that's the good loot you want to be looking for. Don't expect to find it every single game. A lot of times you'll get it from killing other players if you haven't found a specific item yet, and it's later on they might have that item, but that's what you want to be looking for. A few more tips is if you hear an airplane overhead, that's probably going to be a plane dropping a supply drop. So I heard this plane, I look up, and there you see that is a supply drop that is dropping pretty powerful loot. A lot of times it's a high-powered sniper rifle with maybe a scope or a level 3 armor or helmet. And there's some players really like to seek these out. I kind of stay away from them because they're high traffic areas, and I would rather just creep up on a guy and kill them and get their loot that they got from that. But it's up to you if you want to go for them or not. But just pay attention to airplanes overhead and see if they're dropping a supply drop nearby. Alright, so I've just got a few more tips and then we'll wrap up this video and hope you guys get out there and play some battlegrounds. But the first tip is on when to engage the enemy. Now, I highly recommend against just engaging with everyone you see. You want to be smart and pick your battles, especially if you're playing duos or squad. Don't shoot at someone until you know where both the teammates or most of the squad is. You don't want to just engage on one person, give away your position, and then let their teammates close around you. So like on this example right here, we had seen those two guys maybe like 30 seconds earlier, but we'd only seen one of them. And so we waited and we stalked them and kind of waited until we saw both enemies and got in position where we could both take them out at the same time, and executed both the kills. So just be smart about when to shoot, when to kind of just hide and not engage and let someone walk by or drive by. But I just say pick your battles and you'll end up better off. Another tip is on map awareness and positioning. So let's say that this map is an example of the flight path that your plane had when it came in. The red line is the flight path and the white lines are the theoretical limits of how far you could parachute away. So if it was me and this was the flight path, I probably would have gotten a car and gone to the very northwest side of the map, or maybe down to the southeast side on Military Island and gone to like the shipping yard on the far east end of that island, and then come from the areas where you're not going to have to watch your back as much. So if you're going as far away as possible and just kind of creeping in on the white circle as it gets smaller and smaller, that limits how many players are going to be behind you, and you're going to be better off for end game. We've made it to my last tip. If you're still with me, I sure appreciate it. Thanks for hanging in there. But if you go into the graphics settings, even if you have a really powerful rig, I'm playing on a GTX 1080 and an i7, but I still put my foliage on low or very low. And the reason for this is it's going to drastically reduce the amount of foliage on the map and going to make players a lot more visible. And anyone that wants to be competitive in this game, you can watch all the other YouTube videos of professional players even. They're going to put their foliage on low to give them a competitive edge on players that might not do that. And I know it's not the prettiest thing to look at. I personally kind of hate it. I wish we all had to play on better graphical settings because I want it to look better. But if it's going to give me an advantage, that's why we're playing this game. We want to get that winner chicken dinner, you know what I mean? So go ahead, set it on low, and that'll help you out. That's it for my beginner's guide. Leave a comment if I missed anything, and I hope you guys enjoyed this one because it took quite a bit of effort. Leave a like and a comment if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Kilo over and out.